Hey, what's up everybody? This is Dr. Corey Glenn with Transcend Digital Dental Lab and Transcend Dental Education. And I was going to do a video today on how I do the smile design and then turn that into the 3D Waxup for a full arch case that was submitted to us. So to start out, when I do these, I start with the smile simulation, because if you've got a good simulation, you can know a lot more about where you need to virtually position the teeth for the wax up. So what I'm going to be using is just PowerPoint to do the simulation, and I've gone to my channel here. It's Corey Glenn is my YouTube channel, but this is something I've previously done a video on called Easy and Free Smile Simulations. Again, there's a lot of purpose design softwares, DTS Pro, Dentron, there's a bunch of them that you could use for this purpose. But what I find is that most people have PowerPoint already available and at their fingertips. So this is something, if you've got PowerPoint, you can do this. So the doctor submitted cone beams, intraoral scans, but I'm not even going to get into any of that stuff until I've first of all analyzed his pictures and done this 2D simulation. Because again, aesthetics drives the case. You've got to know where you want the teeth to be before you can start even thinking about implants. There's no point in me telling them it's going to be FP1, FP3 until I know where the teeth belong, because all of that is going to dictate where implants go, how much space is available, and so forth. So there's really three pictures I prefer to have. I've only got two of them here, but we'll be able to work with this. But I want a full face with lips slightly apart, just at repose. What I'd use that for is to reference the incisal edge and see if I need to lengthen it or shorten it. For example, a middle-aged male like this is probably going to have, on average, about 1 to 2 millimeters of incisal show at rest. So if I look at that picture and I'm not seeing any, I know I need to lengthen the teeth. Now I am missing that picture here, but again, we'll work with it. The second is a full face exaggerated smiling. I need to be able to see where their teeth are when they're smiling. And then the last one that I'll use is the side view, and what I'm looking at on this is I'm referencing the facial extent of the teeth. So here you can see his incisal edge, and he's slightly open, but if he was to close down, you would see that tooth hits right on the wet dry line of the lip. And so I don't need to bring the teeth any more facial from what they are. If anything, I might could bring it back maybe a millimeter, but I'm probably going to leave it right where it is. But I do think that lengthening these teeth and certainly evening out the occlusal plane is going to be a big benefit to this patient. So all I've done so far is pull this into the template, and again, this template is something I've made free and available. If you go again to that Easy and Free Smile Simulation video on YouTube, in the comments there's a link that you can click that will take you to where you can download that. I don't make anything off this, it's just something I found useful. But I've pulled this picture into the template, positioned it behind these lines, and then I've rotated the picture, dragged it up and down until I've got his pupils passing through in the exact same point on both pupils with this horizontal line. Then there's a duplicate of that line that I just pulled down, and I'm going to line that up to wherever I want his incisal edge to be. So here you can see that's where it is currently. I'm going to say let's lengthen that by maybe a millimeter, okay? And then you've got these other lines, okay? So this middle one should go right through the midline of his face. All right, so I'm trying to usually gauge that off of the dead middle of the bridge of his nose and then through the upper philtrum of the lip, right in the middle. So when I do that, I'm seeing that his current midline is pretty darn good. I don't have to change that a whole lot. And then these other lines are going to be what I use to gauge where the canines should go. Okay, so you can see he's, due to misalignment, his teeth are pretty squashed in, and so I don't want to use those as my gauge, because then I would be putting his canines right there. That's not ideal. In dentures we're told to make it about the width of their nose, but I'm looking at that and that's a full tooth width beyond it, so I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to go about right there-ish. Okay, maybe pull that one in and that one, and I do try to make these symmetric, which PowerPoint alerts you when they're symmetric. Okay, so this is the planes that I'm going to align my smile simulation to. Now I want to grab one of my photos that I use in this simulation, and these pictures, some of them are taken where there's a exaggerated U shape to the smile, like if their head's tilted down a little bit. Some of them are a little more flat. I'm looking at the way he's positioned, and it's making his occlusal plane be pretty flat across. He doesn't have his chin way up in the air, nor is it tilted way down. So I'm going to look in my library here for a library of teeth that is comparable to that. This one would be too U-shaped, this one's too U-shaped, that one's too flat across, I think. I'm liking this one, and this is actually a patient I did a full mouth rehab on. This is all an EMAX full mouth rehab. Actually, I think that's zirconia, but it doesn't matter. But this is a guy that reminds me a lot of him. He's a big guy, big masseters, round face shape, and I know it looked great on that guy. I'm going to try to transplant that into this new patient. All right, let me pause the video for a second. I got a phone call. Okay, sorry about that. Lost my train of thought here, but I believe what I was saying was that this patient is, very round face, large masseter that I restored here. So I'm going to just snag that smile and use it in my simulation. So this is all in that template. I just right-click, copied. Now I'm going to go back up here and drop it into this. Okay, I want it to fall behind these lines so that I can see where I'm lining it up to. So I'm going to right click this and the face and send to back. There we go. And now I can just need to just click this one, and now I'm going to downsize this to where my canines fall within the canine widths that I established. Alright, upsize that just a hair. There we go. So again, based on the internasal width and gauging off where his existing was, these are the lines I came up with where I want the canines, or at least the width of the teeth to be. And now I'm just going to drag this down, line up the midline, and put it on the line where I proposed this new incisal edge. Okay, now that's in place, but that's not much of a simulation, I'm sure you'd agree. So what I've got to do now is go ahead and create the mouth cutout. I'm going to bring this face, so I'm going to bring the full face picture to the front again, and now I'm going to zoom way in. If you want to zoom, it's Control and then scroll ball. Now I'm going to go to Insert a Shape, and we're going to use this one. This is the freeform shape, and I'll just start anywhere, and I'm just single clicking my way around and outlining what's within his lips kind of as a frame. I hear that my kids just got home from school, so if you hear hollering here in a moment, that is why. Alright, so just continue around until you get back to where you started. Now you can see this video, or the shape has closed itself. Now I'm going to go to Fill, right click Fill, and No Fill at the moment. Then let's go to Outline. I want to make this outline the smallest it can be. And then beyond that, I can change the color too. So if I right click Outline again, what I like to do is go to Eyedropper, and then I'll just select somewhere on the picture that's like the pink of the lip. So now you can see that almost disappears. Alright, so now we've got that selected and this selected. What I need to do now is bring that the picture of the teeth back to the front. So I'll send that to back, and I want to bring these two to the front so I don't end up with lines on this. So bring the front. Alright, so I'll bring the front, zoom way in, and I will use my snipping tool. Alright, so I'm going to do a freeform snip, and I'm going to snip within the frame of that shape that I just created in his lips. Alright, very important step that you do that. If you try to just copy and paste a normal picture, it's going to not work correctly. So let me save this. Okay, so I've saved that, and now I can actually do the simulation. All right, so send this to the back, send that to the back, and what I want to do now is click on the shape of the outline of his lips again, right click, fill with a picture from a file, and it's the Sim2 picture that I just did. All right, and there's my simulation. I can put that behind the lines or in front of it. So let's try sending to back first, and we'll see how well we lined everything up. Midline's dead on, incisal edge is right there on the right spot, inner canine width is good, and that looks like a good simulation to me. If I was to bring that all to the front where you don't see the lines, now again you can see the simulation. Now it's a little squirrely right here because this picture wasn't quite wide enough, but that's not an important part anyway. One other thing I'll do to make these look a little bit more realistic, because that sharp demarcation between the simulation smile and the lip can make it look a little iffy, but if I go to Format Picture and go to Soft Edges, if you will increase this just by 1 point, to me that makes it blend in a lot better. Okay, so this now is the simulation. Now I can do several things with this. I can duplicate it, and then I could click this and go to transparency, make it maybe partially transparent. Okay, so now I can see how much I need to widen and lengthen all of these teeth if I want to achieve this simulation. Another thing you can do, let's duplicate this twice, or actually do one. I could crop this. And so now that it's just a picture, you can actually crop this. So I like to do this sometimes, bring this over to the midline where I can see kind of a half smile. And then if I was to duplicate this, then I can recrop. This time take it back out to its original and do it this way. There we go. So now I'm ready to go ahead and do the 3D simulation. So let me launch Blue Sky Plan. Okay, so we got Blue Sky Plan opened. You can see I've already had segmentation done on this. Got something super cool to tell everybody about very soon on the segmentation front. It's going to make your life infinitely easier. But everything's already stitched in. Again, no implant planning as of yet because I need to first of all do this wax up. So I'll do the wax up in the denture module. So I'm switching over to denture. All right. And now it's going to be a constant back and forth between this picture, right? Probably more accurately say this picture, which is the one where I can see his, existing teeth versus my proposal. And what I'm seeing here, I'm going to get some mental notes here. So midline versus where it is currently needs to be shifted 1 millimeter to his left. And then I'm going to have the number 8 and 9 slightly wider, and I can see about how much wider I need to go. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and choose a tooth library. This one I think will work great with that Bastien Deloge library. That's one I tend to use quite a bit. I don't need second molars, so I'll control and deselect them. And there we go. So remember, based on that lateral view, I don't want to bring incisal edge any farther out. So I'm going to go ahead and pull them back to the proper position facially. And now as I'm looking at this, he's got his first molar here. The library first molar is over here. So this needs to be shrunk quite a bit. All right, and as I do that, I'll have to realign it slightly. Now, I don't get too bent out of shape over matching these molars exactly. I really am more concerned about scaling these anterior teeth. Okay, so again, back to my mental notes, his midline is going to be about right there. Okay, and I've toggled the transparency of that individual tooth. All right, now again, think back to what we just saw on the width of that tooth. So midline now is over slightly. That to me looks like it's pretty close, but I'm going to reference back over here. Again, so it looks like the contact point between lateral and central is falling right on about the medial third of this lateral. All right, so I can turn any of these teeth transparent, and I'm a hair oversized, so I'm going to scale down ever so slightly right there. All right, midline's kind of lined up the same there. Pull it over slightly, there we go. Contact points falling right there. Now let's reference length. How much longer was my simulation? And it really is not much longer, so about where I've got it. And now I'm looking at more or less just the occlusal plane. Okay, so it's too flattened off right now. Let me double check back here. Yeah, so I'm going to more or less match up his existing occlusal plane. Yes. All right, so that means all of this needs to get tilted up. So I'm more or less in the same plane now, and now I need to bring it back into alignment. It's not far enough facial right now. There, I'm matching it up. So I'm doing everything based right now really off of these anterior teeth. So once again, length, roughly the same. Midline, you can see I've got it offset this direction by about 1 millimeter. And then for the scaling of those anterior teeth, I'm looking, remember my contact point fell on about the medial third of this lateral. I'm lined up perfectly there. So my teeth are scaled properly now. And at this point, the only thing left to do is to go ahead and conform this more to the arch shape of this patient. So I'm going to show the tooth chain, and let's lock centrals, and we need to pull this back slightly. So I hold shift, pull back a little bit. I don't want to come all the way back, because if you remember, his existing teeth are kind of tucked back in there quite a bit. Let me turn the transparency on for you. All right, remember these teeth were tucked back, so I don't want to do that. I want to widen this arch out, broaden it a little bit. Those teeth look too small for a big dude like this. This side I'll make about the same change, just a slight tweak inward. All right, canines look pretty good. Now these posteriors do have to get widened, so now I'm going to lock it at the canines, and I'm going to expand outward. All right, so think about this. You know, I would guess this guy's probably got sleep apnea, from one apnea fella to another. And so the last thing I want to do is further limit how much space his tongue has to occupy. And honestly, I've not gotten into measuring intermolar width and a lot of that stuff, but a lot of times you can actually significantly improve that apnea just by creating a little more space for their tongue. All right, so I've actually created just a bit more than what he currently has on that side. I'm going to do it over here. But that's actually a great tip I picked up from Danny Doming. He started showing me some cases of where he's been, doing implant rehabs and really assessing intercanine and intermolar widths. And this really drove it home to me. Like when we measured me, I have the average intermolar and intercanine width of a cleft patient. And so no wonder I nearly die every night in my sleep. But he started treating these patients, and with their implant rehab, he was opening up the arch more. Kind of think of like an instant orthognathic, giving their tongue more room, expanding their arches, and it made huge differences in the ability for those patients to breathe. So this is where I'm going to put my Waxup. Now I'm going to hide the jaws. So right click, toggle visibility, and I'm going to turn on his opposing. And so the last thing would be to, check the occlusion. Okay, so since this guy's lower arch is not going to be done, I'm going to need to adjust his occlusion. Now, partially, I could do that by opening his bite, and really, I think he would benefit from that. So what I'm going to do is jump, before I start trying to adjust the occlusion into this, I'm going to go over to Model Editing, and I'm going to open the bite with this jaw. Okay, what I like to do is I will duplicate this jaw so I've got a second one, change its color. But within this, if you go under buccal bite registration, mandible articulation, you can actually place an articulator onto the mandible. All right, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to drop this in place, and I find it useful here to turn on the segmented jaw, because that really gives me an idea of where the condyles belong. Okay, show the articulator, and now I can start to align this articulator. Let's lock all these teeth so they're not at risk of moving. All right, so when I hover on this articulator now, I can position it. And basically you would want that pivot point to be right on his condyles. Right there. Okay. And this is essentially just a Bonwell triangle. I'm going to make those teeth transparent, the central incisors, so that I can see that a little bit easier. Or for that matter, I can just hide them at the moment. Where's the other central? There we go. All right. So I'm more or less lined up. I could tweak it just slightly right there. Okay, so your Bonwell triangle, if you think about it, is supposed to be, I think it's 100 or 105 millimeter triangle between condyles and lower incisal edge. So this is better than really a semi-adjustable articulator, because I've truly got it lined up on the condyles here. You can edit all these parameters, right? Edit articulation parameters. I can change things like that. But I'm right on the pivot point of the mandible. And so what I will do now is go ahead and open him slightly. All right, so I'm looking from the lateral view, and I'm going to open this just a bit. Not much at all. All right, I'm going to hide his other jaw because I do keep one of those untouched, and I'm just eyeballing this. And really, I think I don't even have to open it as much as I did. Alright, so the posteriors look very closely aligned now. So this is what I'm going to use as the new bite. Okay, so I'm going to relabel that model. There we go. And now I could go ahead and adjust occlusion if necessary. I could also look from the underside. That tooth, yeah, that one's a little excessive. So let's jump back to denture module real quick, and let's just make some slight tweaks on this to get his occlusion more dialed in. Manipulate model, and I'm going to drag that tooth down just a little bit. I could also do this in crown and bridge, and rather than adjusting whole teeth positions, just like do cusps, but I think this is going to work great. Kick that out just a hair. And now I'm kind of just conforming this a little bit more closely to his existing teeth. Alright, that one's clearly going to be on a crossbite, but that little tweak right there is going to make that better positioning. Alright, I like that. Let's see if there's anything else I would tweak. That canine, if I twist it a little bit, that's going to resolve the occlusion interference there. And then just to kind of show you a different option, if I was to go to crown and bridge module, okay, now under the tooth editing panel, I can choose any one of these teeth. So like, let's choose this tooth that's impinging. Any of these tools now are available to you. So what I like to use is the local deform, which I can choose a spot size, and then I can just pull this down. So I'm not changing the buccal contour at all. And size of length, or occlusal buccal length, is going to be maintained the same. All right. Where else needed significant adjustment? All right. So how about this tooth? There we go. All right. So my occlusion is mostly dialed in. And then I think for that canine, honestly, I could probably accomplish it just by a slight rotation. So get that where I can see it, and then I give it a slight twist, and now it's resolved. So now my occlusion, it's not ground in perfectly, but it's darn close, and a lot of times I'll do that on the back end of things. I'll do a Boolean subtraction and get it perfectly dialed in. So this is now my finalized Waxup, okay? And save your case at this point. You don't want to risk accidentally messing things up now and moving it around and knocking these teeth out of position. All right, and at this point you would be ready to begin planning implant positions. So now I could actually see where teeth belong, and I could start planning implant positions. So for example, let's grab this doctor's using Biomax. Let's go get a Biomax 4.3 by 11.5 in the maxilla. I'll put on a custom abutment, make it about 20, and let's see where we want to drop that. Let's try, I usually like to go laterals when possible. And now we can start making determinations. Do we want to do a hybrid? Okay, well, if we're going to do a hybrid, we need to measure our inner occlusal width. So that implant position would be great if we're doing a hybrid. I've got 16 millimeters of prosthetic space. If I was going to do an FP1, which it looks like that is also an option here, I don't need that much. I could pull this down, maybe closer to that. Okay, because an FP1 you really only need about 12 millimeters of space. We'll tweak the positioning a bit. We want to be emerging through the cingulum with an FP1. So that would be a great position. And we could see where that looks like it's emerging in this 3D window, right through the cingulum. That would be perfect. So now at this point, I could go to the doctor and say, listen, here's the proposed Waxup dictated by this picture, okay, the simulation that we did. And assuming they're good with the simulation, then we can say, all right, well, this 3D Waxup matches that, and here's your options on the implant placement. And do you want to go FP1 with custom abutments or screw in? Do you want to go FP3 with the hybrid, because those determinations are going to be where it dictates my implant positions go, what lengths I can use, all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, I hope that made sense. To me, this is the starting point for any full arch case. I'm going to do this every single case, some version of this, to figure out where teeth belong first, and then I'm not even planning implant positions until I know where those teeth belong. So to me, that's the biggest key for success in any of these cases, because again, nobody cares if your implants integrate, how much you paid for them, how great of an implant they are, if your end result is ugly. There's far too many cases being done this way that are not this way, but being done generally, that you're ending up with subpar results because you don't have adequate interocclusal space, or you have too much. There's just too many unknowns. So there's 0 unknowns at this point. Now we know exactly where teeth belong, and we can plan accordingly for whatever type of restoration that we want. So anyway, that's it. Hope that was helpful to you.